Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video. In the earlier sessions, in relation to the clubbing of income provisions, we discussed about section 60, 61, 62, 63 and 64 also, under various circumstances when the clubbing provisions would be applied, which means nothing but the income is earned by somebody else, but such income is included in the total income of SSC. And I have already sent a cropped image of the summary of this chapter in a flowchart and asked you to revise it very thoroughly. Hopefully you all have done that. And after understanding the provisions of this chapter, we need to apply these provisions in various situations, what we call them as problems. But before going to the problem solving part, let us quickly revise, recapitulate what are the provisions in relation to this topic and what are the key aspects to be remembered. So let us take one by one. Section 60 is the first clubbing provision, which says if there is a transfer of income without the transfer of asset, then automatically that income will be includable in the hands of the transferor of that income. And this is applicable in all cases. There is no point of knowing who is the SSC. This is applicable for all persons, and also this is applicable for all types of transfers, whether revocable or irrevocable. So section 60 is a very general section where the transfer of income happened without the transfer of assets. Now section 61 is about income which is arising from the transfer of assets. However, how is that transfer? That transfer here is revocable transfer. Means what is happening here? The asset is transferred revocably and such asset is earning some income. Such income is to be clubbed in the hands of the transferor of assets. You need to be always clear in terms of what is transferred and what is to be clubbed. Clubbed is always income. What is transferred could be different. In section 60, what is transferred? That is income itself transferred. So income itself clubbed. Section 61, what is transferred is not income. What is transferred is an asset. But what is to be clubbed? That is the income arising out of such transferred assets. And such income from such transferred assets shall be clubbed in the hands of transferor, of course, when such transfer is a revocable transfer of assets. There are some exceptions also which are mentioned in section 62, and what are those exceptions also we discussed it. When the clubbing provisions will not apply, if the clubbing provision, if the revocability of the transfer is not applicable during the lifetime of the beneficiary. That means the revocability is not going to happen till the beneficiary or the transferee is alive. After he is dead, if it is coming back to the transferor, of course it is still a revocable transfer. Still clubbing provisions will not apply since it is coming under exceptions to section 61 which are mentioned in section 62. And the second one is not that important as we already looked at. But yeah, there is any transfer happening long back before 1/4/1961 and that is also revocable after 6 years. In that case, also clubbing provisions will not apply. So the second one is a very unique situation. That's a very age-old case which may or may not be relevant for problems, but the first situation is quite possible to be asked as an MCQ or a case-based question. If the transfer is happening in such a way that the same is not revocable during the lifetime of the transferee, in that case, then the clubbing provisions will not apply. And the transferor should derive no direct or indirect benefit from such income, and as and when the power to revoke arises, clubbing provisions would apply naturally. When the revocability happened, the revocability could be partial or full, that is either way. However, point to be noted, irrespective of whether the revocability is partial or full, direct or indirect, clubbing is always in full. Clubbing has to happen on the entire income arising from such transfer of assets which are transferred revocably to somebody else. That is section 61, and 62 is exceptions to section 61, and in fact 63 is also just a definition of what is a revocable transfer. As the name itself indicates, revocable means reversible, means once there is an asset which is transferred by one person to another person, the asset will come back to the first person. The first person, the transferor, reassumes the power, reassumes the right over that asset after some period of time. If that is the case, that is called as revocability. That is defined in section 63. That is not a clubbing provision, but that is only telling us what is the meaning of revocable transfer. But once the revocable transfer of assets happened, in that case section 61 is applicable, and income arising from such assets shall be clubbed in the hands of transferor of such assets under section 61 normally. However, exception circumstances like section 62, where clubbing provisions are not applicable, are also there. What are those two things? One, if the revocability does not happen during the lifetime of transferee, then clubbing provisions are not applied. Or if the transfer happened before 1461 with a period of revocation after 6 years of time, then also clubbing provisions are not applicable under section 62. That is for everybody. This portion of the clubbing provisions are applicable for every person. There is no need that the transferor should be individual, and there is no need that transferor and transferee have any kind of relationship also. Now, coming to the other area of spouse's income, how this has to be clubbed. Each of them is a separate category. First category is generic category, section 60, 61, 62, 63, all of them are in that. Then coming to spouse, these are the three areas where spouse's income is going to be clubbed, and the provisions are like this: 61, 64, 12, 64, 14, 64, 16. Easy to remember. 64, 1 is common, 2, 4, 6, 7, not 6, 7, 2, 4, 7, 24 by 7 you can say. So 24 by 7 means 2, 4, 7 are those three cases where the spouse's income shall be clubbed in the hands of the SSE. In that, major one is major one is this one, first one, that is 64, 1, 2, where remuneration to a spouse is being given in relation to the services she is rendering, where in a concern in which the SSA has a substantial interest. So spouse is receiving some remuneration from a concern in which the SSA has substantial interest, and we know what is a substantial interest. When we can say a particular person has a substantial interest, when we can say if such person is having at least 20% voting right or profit share in any organization, such person is said to be having substantial interest. Okay, he has substantial interest, does not make any difference. But if a person is having substantial interest in an organization and that organization is paying to the spouse of this person some remuneration, then such remuneration is deemed to be the income of the original person, and then it will be clubbed in the income of our SSE. So that is the clubbing provision in relation to spouse's remuneration. Of course, there is an exception, and what is the exception here? Where the spouse is possessing technical professional qualification, then the clubbing provisions will not apply. That is an exception to section 64, 1, 2. That is in relation to clubbing of income of spouse in the hands of the SSE. That is one case. Another case is income arising from an asset which has been transferred by the SSE to his spouse without adequate consideration or without any agreement to live apart. Of course, if there is an agreement to live apart, clubbing provisions will not apply if the wife and husband are normally living together without any agreement to live apart or divorce. In that case, if the SSC has transferred any asset to the spouse without adequate consideration, then any income arising from such asset, including house property, though the house property related provisions are already mentioned in section 27, where transfer of house property to spouse without consideration has already been discussed, then transferor will be deemed as owner of such property, and such income from house property shall be taxable, shall be included in the income of transferor, that is the SSC. And who is the legal owner here? Spouse. Who is earning income in reality? Spouse. But in whose hands it is taxable? In the hands of the transferor of asset, who is also the SSC for us. In that case also spouse's income is clubbed in the hands of SSC. Another case. Of course, there is a third case here in relation to spouse's income, which is in relation to 64(1)(7). There, if any transfer happened in favor of a spouse, means the transfer is not happening directly from the SSC to spouse, rather it is transferred to some other person like AOP or any other trust or something, and that has been transferred to that trust or AOP without adequate consideration, but ultimately who is getting the benefit? The benefit is coming to spouse. In other words, the asset is not though legally transferred to the spouse, the benefit from that asset has been effectively transferred to the spouse. So the point once again comes here, whether the SSC transfers the asset directly to the spouse or indirectly to the spouse, if the benefit of such asset accrues to the spouse, automatically clubbing provisions will apply, and whatever income that spouse earns from such asset should be clubbed in the hands of the SSC. But understand the difference between this point and this point. In this point, the asset itself is transferred to the spouse. In this point, asset is not transferred to the spouse, it is transferred in favor of somebody else. But the benefit from such asset is actually accruing to spouse. So this is like creating a benefit in the asset in favor of spouse indirectly. Here the benefit in the property is created directly. So whether directly or indirectly, ultimately if there is a transfer of an asset by the SSC to spouse or any other person, ultimately the beneficiary of that is the spouse. In that case, the income from such asset shall be clubbed in the hands of transferor. That is all about clubbing provisions in relation to spouse. Then similar provisions are applicable in case of son's wife also. We can come to this. So son's wife also very similar. If these two actually will be applicable, continued to son's wife also. The first one, remuneration of son's wife, if at all there is any, from a concern where the SSC is a person having substantial interest, clubbing provisions are not applicable. This is only in case of spouse. 64(1)(2) is applicable only for spouse. 64(1)(4), 64(1)(7) have similar implications on son's wife also. So if there is any income arising to son's wife from an asset transferred without adequate consideration, that will be clubbed in the hands of transferor. Same way, any income arising to any other person or AOP from the assets transferred without consideration, ultimately who is the beneficiary here? Son's wife. If that is the case, then also such income shall be clubbed in the hands of transferor. And who is the transferor in this case? Transferor is father-in-law or mother-in-law. Transferee is bahu, that is son's wife. So in this case also clubbing provisions will apply, though legally son's wife might be the owner of the property, legally son's wife might be earning income from any other property, directly or indirectly. In all cases it will be clubbed in the hands of transferor, that is the SSC. These are the various aspects in relation to clubbing in respect of 64(1)(2), 64(1)(4), 64(1)(7). Here 64(1)(6), 64(1)(8). If you don't remember the subclasses and subsections, at least you can refer to as section 64(1). Enough. That is enough. But 64(1)(a) is a very important aspect, that is minor's income, that is 64(1)(a). What happens here? All income of the minor is clubbed in the income of the parent whose total income excluding minor's income is greater. That is a simple way of understanding it. All income of the minor clubbed in the income of parent whose total income excluding the minor's income is greater. However, you have to remember this particular section, very important. Exemption of up to 1500 rupees, up to, not exactly 1500, up to 1500 rupees per child is available under section 1032. That exemption you have to remember. Clubbing provisions of minor always applicable. Normally when the minor earns some income, that income is to be not taxed in the hands of minor, rather it will be taxed in the hands of the parent. Question comes, which parent? That parent whose total income is higher before doing this clubbing. And of course there are some exceptions here. These two exceptions also to be remembered very clearly. What are the exceptions to be remembered here? One, if the income is earned from manual work or from skill, talent or specialized knowledge or experience, then there is no clubbing. Two, where the minor is suffering from any disability which has been mentioned in section 80U, then also clubbing provisions will not apply. Means what? Income earned by minor will be taxed in the hands of minor only. That's what section 64(1)(a) is all about. But this has to be actually focused a lot compared to other sections, because 60, 61, 62, 63, these are all very generic sections, they can be easily understood. 64(1)(2) is more important, related to spouse, and these two here and these two here are same, whether it is related to spouse or wife's son's wife. In both cases, if there is an asset that is transferred without consideration, income arising from such asset has to be clubbed. So logically there is no difference between this block and these two. This and these two are same. This is different. This is going to be something which is only applicable for spouse, and all others are generic. 60 is a generic section applicable to everybody. 61 is also applicable to everybody except when that is a revocability happening after the death of transferee. So these are the sections which are normally useful in clubbing. But out of all this, the very important section is 64(1)(a), and you need to be very thorough with the provisions of 64(1)(a). So let us quickly go through some of the aspects related to 64(1)(a) in detail. Once again, most of them are already known, but certain subtle points have to be always remembered. First, what does the 64(1)(a) say? Simply speaking, all such income which accrues or arises to the minor child to be clubbed in the hands of that parent whose total income excluding the income of minor child is greater. However, if the marriage of the parent does not subsist, it shall be included in the income of that parent who maintains the child. This is the provision which we already discussed. Nothing new here, we are just revising it. Same way, section 1032 also we discussed, where the income of the child is so included in the hands of the parent shall be entitled to an exemption of maximum 1500 in respect of each minor child under section 1032. That is very important section to be remembered, and the amount of 1500 also has to be remembered always. Once an income is included in the hands of one parent, it shall continue to be clubbed in the hand of that parent only in all future years, unless the assessing officer thinks that it should be clubbed in the hands of other parent. That is also a provision which we discussed. And another point is a twist point we should always know within the Income Tax Act. Children include stepchildren or adopted children also. That is another point to be noted. But what is also very important here is when the clubbing provisions will not apply. When they will not apply, if the child is suffering from any disability under section 80U, like what, physically disabled, totally blind, etc. We don't need to know the disability names, but if there is any disability mentioned in section 80U, if the minor child is suffering from such disability, clubbing provisions will not apply. Means no need of clubbing. Income will be taxable in the hands of that minor child himself or herself. Same way, if the income is earned by the child due to the manual work or the activity applying skills, talent or specialized knowledge or experience, then also the income will be taxable in the hands of income earner, that is minor child in this case, but not the parent. So no clubbing provision in that case also. But why this point is very important, the next one, twist point and MCQs, lot of cases it is quite possible. Look at the last point, very important point here is, if an individual transfers a house property to a minor married daughter. Minor married daughter is a very important case, not normally speaking, normally there will be very few people like that, but from examination point of view, since it is a twist point, because it is not the same thing everywhere, you have to remember income from house property also here. If an individual transfers a house property to the minor married daughter, then what happens? Income from such property is not clubbed in the parent's income. If you remember the house property provisions, where the deemed owner provisions are there in section 27. 27 says what? If a property is transferred to spouse or a minor child without adequate consideration, then the income from such property shall be included in the hands of transferor, and there are exceptions there. One exception is, if the transfer of house property happened to the spouse as an agreement to live apart, then there is no need of clubbing. Another exception there was minor married daughter. That is coming once again here. If a house property is transferred to the minor married daughter, no clubbing provisions. However, why this is important? Clubbing provisions are attracted in respect of other income of minor married daughter. See, that is the variety. So if there is minor married daughter, clubbing provisions will be applicable normally for all incomes. However, clubbing provisions will not be applicable only for income from house property. That is what makes it a special point in relation to minor married daughter. You have to keep that in mind very carefully. These are the small subtle cases where the questions will come from. So in general, minor married daughter is not something different from any other minor. But where the difference will come, income from house property of minor married daughter shall not be clubbed in the hands of the parent. That is a very important exception we have to remember. So these are the provisions of section 64(1)(a), that is related to clubbing of income in relation to minor, and where it has to be clubbed in the hands of the parent. Which parent? That parent whose total income is higher before doing this clubbing of income of the minor child. That's what is the summary of all the provisions which we already discussed, ranging from 60 to 64. That's what we discussed, 60, 61 and 62 as well as 63 and 64. Within 64, 64 1 2, 64 1 4 and 64 1 7 also are there. Later we have clubbing provisions in relation to son's wife contained in 64(1)(8) and 64(1)(6). Then very important provision 64(1)(A), that is in relation to clubbing of minor's income. Each of them is a very important point to be remembered. All these things you have to read very thoroughly and revise them also as given in the diagram or whatever the flowchart type thing which was already given to you. Now some other general points to be noted before moving to solving of problems is: 1. Clubbing is mandatory. Clubbing is not optional. It has to be done irrespective of whether it is for the benefit of the SSC or whether it is for the benefit of revenue, means government. So government or assessing officer cannot do clubbing when it is beneficial to the government, and he will say no need of clubbing, don't worry, whenever it is not beneficial to the government. That is not possible. It has to be done means it has to be always done, not only for the benefit of revenue. So the first point is clubbing is mandatory. Second, should we club negative income also? Always yes. There is no difference between plus and minus normally in Income Tax Act. If there is clubbing of positives, there will be clubbing of negatives also. Income includes negative income. Hence, losses shall also be clubbed. There is no difference between profits and losses when it comes to clubbing. Next, how the clubbing has to happen. Basically, the income has to be calculated in the hands of the income earner first, then thereafter the net income shall be clubbed. Naturally, that's what we do. Without calculating the income, how can we do the clubbing? Not possible. So that is how the procedure happens. And another important point practically is clubbing shall be made headwise. Clubbing shall be made headwise. Headwise means, let us say income from house property of a person is there, that is minor child, shall be clubbed in the hands of either of the parents under which head? Naturally, income from house property only. Income from house property of minor child cannot be clubbed with PGBP of the parent, not possible. So clubbing will happen headwise. Salaries income will be clubbed with salaries, income from house property will be clubbed in income from house property, like that. Headwise clubbing will happen. One head's income cannot be clubbed with other head's income. That is also common sense point, but these are the points to be remembered. So clubbing is mandatory. Negative income also to be clubbed. Clubbing has to happen after calculating it first in the hands of the recipient or income earner. Then the clubbing shall be made headwise. These are also some of the points to be remembered while solving the problems. And in solving some of the questions in the earlier sessions, we discussed about what if there is a transfer of assets and such a transfer of asset is actually utilized in the business of the transferee. Then how to do the clubbing? Income from such business has to be proportionately clubbed in the hands of the transferor by taking this formula. You can take this also. Income from business into amount invested out of the asset transferred divided by total investment in the beginning of the year. This is the same provision what we talked about yesterday. If you want it as a formula, you can note this down. Income from business, whatever it is, multiplied with amount invested out of the asset transferred divided by total investment of the transferee in the beginning of the year. That's the proportionate amount which has to be clubbed with transferor of the asset. Then what happens to the remaining income? Of course, remaining income will be normally taxable in the hands of the income earner only. There is no problem there. The only issue is coming where the income is earned by somebody and that income we are trying to club with somebody else, that is our SSC. So this is a special case you have to always keep in mind, where the transferred asset is invested in business. How to do that? Proportionate amount has to be clubbed in the hands of transferor. And of course there are some other points, general points to be also noted. Should income on income also be clubbed? In case of spouse, in case of son's wife, income on income should not be clubbed. But again another point to be noted. Is there any such provision for minors? No. Means what? Any income of the minor. Any means any. Income of the minor, income on income of the minor, income on income of the minor, whatever it is, any income of the minor should be clubbed. But exception of not clubbing the income on income will apply where? Only to spouse and son's wife. These two cases, income on income shall not be clubbed. Accretion should not be clubbed. Basically the income earned by the asset should be clubbed. That much only has to be always kept in mind in relation to special points of this particular chapter. And once we have these special points noted, once we have these special points understood, we should be able to apply them in various cases which are all given either in the illustrations or in the problems, exercises which are given at the end of the chapter. So let us start with some of the illustrations one by one which are already given in the ICA material. So we are doing this here so that we can solve it easily. So illustration number 8, the same thing what we have here. So what is illustration number 8 talking about? Read it carefully. Compute the gross total income of Mr. and Mrs. X from the following information. The salary, income and other details are given. Brief working is sufficient. Detailed computation under various heads of income is not required is what is said. Okay, that's fine. Basically just like any other question, we need to have a normal heading statement showing computation of what? Gross total income. Of whom? So we have two people here. So definitely Mr. A and who else is there? Mrs. A. So we have Mrs. A. So two columns will definitely be required, and particulars of course will be also there. So Mr. A how much, Mrs. A how much income, that we have to calculate. So let us take the details one by one. Ideally in the examination you should go headwise. Headwise means first salaries, then income from house property, then PGBP, then capital gains, then income from other sources. Ideally it should go like that. But anyway, it depends upon the time available to you. Final answer should be correct. Sequence is okay. That is possible to be little bit compromised with. However, if possible, always do it that way. Whenever we are calculating something, first we should have income from salaries, then we have PGBP, then we have income from other source, income from house property, then we have PGBP, then we have capital gains, then we have income from other sources. Same way they should be there. But is it guaranteed that every problem will have all the five? There is no need. That is why we don't have to really worry about this sequence. Let us take the incomes. Whatever the descriptions are given, they have to be written. So first of all, salary income computed of Mrs. A is 2,30,000. It is of Mrs. A. Is there anything mentioned that Mrs. A is getting this from an organization where Mr. A has substantial interest? If nothing is mentioned, don't make such assumptions. Simply that is her income. She also can do the job very genuinely, and she is getting a salary income of 2,30,000. Nothing wrong in that. So take 2,30,000, which will of course be taxable in the hands of Mrs. A. That is 2,30,000 income from salaries. Right. Next, we have income from profession of Mr. A, that is 3,90,000. Income from house property is not there, but PGBP is there. If there is PGBP, under whose hands it is taxable? Whoever earns it. There is no clubbing here. Profession of Mr. A, Mr. A earns 3,90,000. So same in case of Mrs. A, she earns 2,30,000 salary. Mr. A earns PGBP of 3 lakhs income from salaries. But computed this is, so always you have to be careful whether this is after standard deduction or before standard deduction. Computed means after standard deduction, which is taxable in the hands of Mrs. A. No clubbing. No clubbing is required in this case. PGBP, Mr. A also, no clubbing is required because they are their individual incomes. There is no clubbing required there. Now look at point C. Income of minor son B. B is the minor son of them, and where from he is getting? From company deposit. Doesn't matter. However, wherever he gets from, 15,000 definitely has to be clubbed in the hands of that parent whose total income is higher before doing that clubbing. So, whose income is higher here? If you look at the further points, then only we can come to that. Look at the other points. Income of minor daughter is there C. Again, interest from bank received by C. C is minor daughter, and C only received gift also. So, Mr. A is one character, Mrs. A is one character, minor son B is one character, minor daughter C is one character. So total 4 characters only are there in this. So other than the incomes mentioned in point number A and B, there are no incomes of Mr. A and Mrs. A, which means who has a higher income before clubbing of minor's income? Mr. A. So automatically now we have to come to a conclusion. Minor son B's income from company deposit 15,000 has to be clubbed in the hands of Mr. A. So what we can call that? That is income from other sources, because it is interest income. Interest income is always income from other sources. That is minor son's income clubbed in the hands of Mr. A. Mr. A. Amount is 15,000. But be careful, don't forget 15,000 minus 1,500 exemption under section 1032. So how much should be taxable? 13,500 only. So you should show that in the examination as a working here or in the bracket here. 15,000 minus 1,500 exemption under section 1032. So taxable or amount which has to be clubbed in the hands of Mr. A is 13,500. That is income from other sources. That is from B. Now look at D. Income of minor daughter C from special talent 32,000. So C is a minor daughter, no doubt about it, but she got this income of 32,000 from a special talent. So special talent means it should not be clubbed. Is he asking to calculate the income of C? No, the question is only about calculating the income of Mr. and Mrs. A. So we don't need to worry about this 32,000 since it is not to be clubbed in the hands of any of the parents, since the minor daughter got this from a special talent. Next, E. Interest from bank received by C on the deposit made out of her special talent. So whatever the amount that she has earned, this is not the only 32,000. She has been doing that. Maybe she is a singer, maybe whatever she is, she has some sports quality, whatever the talent is, she got some money and she keeps on depositing that money in the bank. From that interest is coming. Is this income to be clubbed or not? Answer is yes, it has to be clubbed. Very carefully, this 3,000 has to be clubbed. Why? This is not special talent income. 32,000 is special talent income which should not be clubbed. 3,000 is income which is received from deposit, not out of special talent. That is why income on income should be clubbed in the case of minor. Be very careful. Income on income should be clubbed in the case of minor. Income on income should not be clubbed in the case of spouse and son's wife. So here, since minor daughter is there, C, this 3,000 should be clubbed. That is from C. So from B, 13,500 was clubbed in the hands of Mr. A. From C, how much to be clubbed now? 3,000 minus 1,500 once again. Don't forget that. Each kid gets 1,500 exemption. So per child 1,500. So 1,500 rupees is what is to be clubbed from this 3,000. In addition to this, there is a gift received by C from a friend of Mrs. A, 2,500. See, the moment you see 2,500, you should remember section 56, income from other sources. As long as the gift amount does not exceed 50,000, what happens? Nothing is taxable. So the question of clubbing does not arise. First of all, income should be taxable, no? Then only the clubbing will arise. When the income itself is not taxable, there is no question of clubbing. There is no question of in whose hands it is taxable. It is not taxable in anybody's hands. Neither it is taxable for C, nor it is taxable for Mr. A, nor it will be taxable for Mrs. A, even though it is received from a friend of Mrs. A. That is useless information. Gift below 50,000 is not taxable. So now add all these things. So how much is this amount? 4 lakhs 5,000. That is the total income of Mr. A, and the total income of Mrs. A is going to be how much? 2,30,000. So 2,30,000 is the total income of Mrs. A, and 4,05,000 is the total income of Mr. A. This is the final answer. That's what is asked here. Gross total income. Why gross total income we are calling it? Why gross total income? Why not total income? Total income will be after the deductions under section 80, which we are not doing now. So gross total income will be before giving the deductions, but after doing clubbing and set off carry forward, etc. So this is gross total income of Mr. A and Mrs. A. That is the answer for this question. 4,05,000 and 2,30,000. So in examination, a proper heading and calculations, and of course working notes. Each of them requires working notes. Why you included 15,000 in the hands of Mr. A? Because income of Mr. A is higher. That provision you have to write. 1,500 deduct exemption under section 1032. That provision you have to write. If there is a income earned from special talent, that should not be clubbed. That provision you have to write. And same way gift provision. If it is not exceeding 50,000, it is not taxable. That provision you have to write. All these working notes put together, this calculation will give you at least 4 to 5 marks for such a question. These are the type of questions typically we can expect in the examination. And of course, the final answer is this: 4,05,000 for Mr. A and 2,30,000 for Mrs. A. These are the two answers. Mrs. A 2,30,000 and Mr. A 4,05,000. The same things what we got. That is about illustration number 8, which was there in the ICA material. Now moving on to some other small topic in relation to cross transfers. Cross transfers is also something where the SSCs may be sometimes over smart and try to create transfers in such a way that directly they may not be transferring to their spouses. Rather, they may be transferring to somebody else, and that somebody else may transfer back other income where there is a cross transfer. So let us just understand this very simply. What is a cross transfer in the case where it works and how this works. So what is a cross transfer? First of all, in case of cross transfers also, the clubbing provisions are applicable. That we have to keep in mind. So a lot of things are given here. Case studies and all, Keshavji, Morarji, all these names you don't have to remember, but remember the concept of cross transfer. See, let us say there is a person called A. Only for example this is, let us say there is a person called Mr. A. Mr. A is there, and normally if Mr. A transfers to Mrs. A any asset, if Mr. A transfers to Mrs. A any asset without adequate consideration, then income from such asset which is normally earned by Mrs. A should be clubbed in the hands of Mr. A, that we know. This is direct transfer where asset is transferred from Mr. A to Mrs. A. That is quite possible, right? If this happens, clubbing provisions will apply. They will definitely apply. So if this is the case, clubbing provisions will apply. Now, if let us say this is the case, means another example, say Mr. B transfers to Mrs. B. Example, let us say Mr. B transfers to Mrs. B, then also clubbing provisions will apply, because whatever the income Mrs. B gets, that will be clubbed in the hands of Mr. B. Now, clubbing provisions will apply in this case, we know that. Now the SSCs might turn to be over smart. What they are doing is this. This is what is cross transfer. So what happened here? Mr. A transfers an asset to Mrs. B and Mr. B transfers an asset to Mrs. A. So ideally speaking, since these two persons do not have any relationship, clubbing provisions should not apply, and it need not be a revocable transfer. If it all is a third party transfer is there, only one that will be applicable. Clubbing provisions of income arising from such asset will be applicable under section 61 when that is a revocable transfer. If it is irrevocable, no clubbing provisions will apply. So here Mr. A will transfer to Mrs. B, who is a third party to him, irrevocably. Mr. B will transfer an asset to Mrs. A irrevocably, who is a third party to him, and legally they may escape from clubbing provisions by doing this. If they do this, that's what we call as cross transfers. That is cross transfer. Point comes now. Should that be allowed? Should this smartness of SSCs be allowed just like that? Or should the act be over smart and smarter than them? Naturally the second choice. So what the act does, even if you do this, even if you do the cross transfer, still it should be applicable. Clubbing provisions will be applicable. But how they will be applicable? Whatever Mr. A transferred to Mrs. B and the income that Mrs. B is getting from such asset will be clubbed in the hands of Mr. A. Then they cannot say, we don't have any relationship, how can there be clubbing? There will be clubbing since it is coming under the purview of cross transfers. Even in case of cross transfers, clubbing provisions are applicable. They cannot escape from clubbing provisions by resorting to these type of structural arrangements. Not possible. So whatever income Mrs. A gets from the assets that she got from Mr. B, that will be clubbed in the hands of Mr. B. Though these two people are not related, still clubbing provisions will be applicable. Though these two people are not related, still clubbing provisions will be applicable. If anything like that happens, that is called cross transfer. This is a very important sideline concept, a small concept, but MCQs or short questions can be expected. Now look at illustration number 9. This is the one which is talking about cross transfers. Understand this carefully. Mr. Vasudevan gifted a sum of 6 lakhs rupees to his brother's wife. 6 lakhs rupees Vasudevan gifted to his brother's wife. Date doesn't matter. Naturally, it will be during our previous year. In the same year, his brother gifted a sum of 5 lakhs rupees to Mr. Vasudevan's wife. So, Vasudevan gifted to his brother's wife. His brother gifted to Vasudevan's wife. Cross transfer very clearly. But point to be noted here, amount is not same. Amount here, what Vasudevan gifted to brother's wife is 6 lakhs. What brother gifted to Vasudevan's wife is 5 lakhs. So how much should be clubbed here? Here itself we can understand. Can 6 lakhs be clubbed? Not correct. To what extent it is arising, or to what extent it is becoming a cross transfer? To an extent of 5 lakhs, it is becoming a cross transfer. That is why 5 lakhs should be definitely clubbed in the hands of the transferors, both Mr. Vasudevan also and his brother also. Then, these are the amounts which are gifted. By the way, this is an asset that is transferred, not an income. Asset is transferred. What is that asset transferred? Cash. Cash is also an asset. And clubbing will happen to asset or income from that asset. Clubbing will not happen for asset. Clubbing will happen for income from that asset. Now, the gifted amounts were invested as fixed deposits in banks by Mrs. Vasudevan also and the wife of Mr. Vasudevan's brother also. But look at the date here. On 1st August 2019, here date is important because it is important for interest calculation at the rate of 9% interest. If this is the case, examine the consequences of the above under the provisions of the Act in the hands of Vasudevan also and his brother also. Now, first of all, calculate this. How much is going to be the one where clubbing provisions are applicable? Definitely not 6 lakhs, it is going to be 5 lakhs only. So 5 lakhs into 9% into how many months here? August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. How many months? 8 months are there here. So 5 lakhs into 9% into how many months? 8 by 12. So how much amount will be considered as income here? That will be taken. So here Mr. A, we can say Vasudevan. Mrs. A is nothing but wife of Vasudevan. B is brother of Vasudevan. Name is not given. When it is not given, don't worry. So let us call him brother of Vasudevan. And Mrs. BV means wife of the brother of Vasudevan. So Vasudevan gifted to his brother's wife and his brother of Vasudevan gifted to the wife of Vasudevan. So this is the cross transfer that has happened. And now the point is, this transfer, Vasudevan gifted to the wife of his brother, how much amount? This happened 6 lakhs. But his brother, Vasudevan's brother transferred to the wife of Vasudevan how much? Only 5 lakhs. Only 5 lakhs. So point is, how much is the interest to be clubbed? By the way, asset is not the one to be clubbed. Interest is the one which has to be clubbed because clubbing provisions are applicable for income on the assets but not assets themselves. So how much is the interest here? 9% for how many months? August to March. That comes to around 8 months as we already calculated. So this into 9% into 8 by 12. So how much is the interest amount? 30,000 in case of this, 36,000 in case of the second transfer. Which has to be clubbed here? Only 30,000 has to be clubbed but not 36,000. That is a point to be noted. Though the income here, the asset transferred is 6 lakhs, the remaining additional 6,000 should not be clubbed because there is no cross transfer to that extent. So the point again to note here is, clubbing happens not for 6 lakhs, 5 lakhs, clubbing happens for incomes on them, and even clubbing of incomes also will not happen on interest on 6 lakhs, 5 lakhs. It will happen only on interest on 5 lakhs. Why? Because that is the amount where there is cross transfer that is involved. Remaining amount, there is no clubbing required. That will be taxable. Don't think it is not taxable. It will be taxable in the hands of recipient of income, but not in the hands of somebody else. So these are the points here. So now 30,000 has to be clubbed in the hands of whom? Mr. Vasudevan. And 30,000 has to be clubbed in the hands of whom? The brother of Vasudevan. For both of them, clubbing provisions will apply, and how much should be clubbed? 30,000, 30,000. That is the answer for illustration number 9. Lot of theory is given here, that is not required. The conclusion is cross transfer is there. How much to be clubbed is not actually answered. Just only consequences is asked, so general explanation was given. But final consequence is what? 30,000 rupees income should be clubbed in the hands of Mr. Vasudevan. Another 30,000 should be clubbed in the hands of brother of Vasudevan. That is the final conclusion in relation to cross transfers. Now, after this section 60, 61, 62, 63, 64 various subsections and clauses in relation to spouse, son's wife and minor, there is one more small topic in relation to HUF, that is conversion of self-acquired property into a joint family property. If somebody who is a member of HUF has converted a self-acquired property, with his hard work he has earned it, but what he has done, he has converted that into a joint family property of a HUF, that is Hindu undivided family. Same thing, in that case, who is the transferor? Member of HUF. Who is the transferee? HUF. And income is earned by whom? HUF. Property legally registered in whose hands? HUF. But in whose hands the income will be taxable? That is not HUF, that is the member of HUF, because it is his self-acquired property. He is just transferring it to HUF, of course, without adequate consideration. Why is he doing that? Why he might do that? Because if it is HUF, there will be number of people against whom the income will be diluted. Let us say one member has a property which gives him 10 lakhs income. That will be taxable in his hands normally. Without this clubbing provision, what will be his thought? Okay, I will transfer this property to HUF, and there will be 5 members of HUF who will get a share of this income, 2 lakhs each. So each member now will get 2 lakhs income. But essentially, whose property is that? That is the member's property. He is transferring it or converting it into a joint family property only for the purpose of reducing or avoiding tax. In order to counteract that, any such conversion of self-acquired property into a joint family property shall be taxable. The income from such property shall be taxable in the hands of transferor. And who is the transferor? The individual, the member of HUF. That has to be understood here, very important point. Now, another thing is, what if after some time there is a partition of HUF, totally or partially? In that case, the income anyway what he gets as his share, the property what the SSC gets as his share, anyway will be taxable. But not only that, even such income derived from the converted property as received by the spouse on partition also is deemed to arise to the other spouse, our SSC, from the assets transferred indirectly by the individual to spouse. So understand this also, another situation. In example, let us say Mr. X transfers a property to HUF of his family. Mr. X transfers a property to HUF of his family. Let us put it straight. X is transferring to HUF. But whose property originally it is? It is actually the hard-earned money and property of Mr. X. So it is his self-acquired property. That is important word. Transferred to HUF for without consideration or for inadequate consideration. Then though legally that is registered in the hands of HUF, the income arising from this will be taxable in the hands of Mr. X only. That is done. Later, HUF itself is partitioned. HUF is partitioned. In that case, what is happening here is the HUF is giving some amount of income to the spouse of Mr. X also. So there is Mr. X and there is Mrs. X. This is the situation. So this is first thing that happened. What happened here first? Mr. X transferred a property to HUF, which is a self-acquired property, now converted into a joint family property. Simply whatever the income from such property is should be clubbed in the hands of Mr. X normally, no problem. That is normal. However, if that HUF is partitioned, when partition happens, various members will get, not only Mr. X, Mrs. X. Partition happens, maybe there are 40 other members, we don't know. All those people, whatever the property share they get, we don't bother about it. But what we bother about is, in this partition, whenever it happens, whatever the income from the share of Mrs. X, that is a spouse, is deemed to be the income of Mr. X. So, income for Mrs. X also after the partition should be clubbed in the hands of Mr. X. Why is that? Once again, first of all, what is the logic of this original thing? We hopefully understood that. If this provision is not there, people will dilute the income by number of people by transferring it to a HUF. That should be avoided. So first provision is applicable. Second provision, this is applicable. Why? If this provision is not there, HUF is something just anybody can do anytime. No, we create a HUF today, tomorrow we can partition. There is no legal procedure for it. So if this provision is not there, what people will do? They will transfer a property to HUF rather than directly transferring from Mr. X to Mrs. X. They will use HUF as a mediator. So Mr. X will transfer to HUF, HUF will transfer to Mrs. X. So this is also a kind of adding another layer, but this layer also is not recognized. That is why this Mrs. X income also should be clubbed in the hands of Mr. X. That is the provisions related to HUF. That should be enough. In relation to HUF's income, that is 64.2. Conversion of a self-acquired property into joint family property, taxable, clubbed in the hands of transferor. When the HUF is partitioned, any income received by spouse of the individual shall be clubbed in the hands of individual. These 2 points have to be always remembered in relation to HUF. Right? That is one point. So, income includes loss is something already what we have discussed. What is the distinction between 61 62 also is there here. 61 is applicable only for revocable transfer. 64 is applicable for all types of transfers, revocable or irrevocable. That does not matter. Also, we already discussed this. Income from the asset is transferred, but income on income is not to be clubbed. So look at this example. Say this example is given for understanding that logic only. Mr. A transferred debentures of 50,000 rupees carrying 10% interest to his wife. Interest income 5,000 would be clubbed in the hands of Mr. X. A actually, this is print mistake. Mr. A, it will be clubbed. However, if that wife deposited 5,000 rupees in fixed deposit at 8%, that means she is earning an income of 400 rupees from that deposit, which is income on income. That would not be clubbed in the hands of Mr. X. So here if you change it to Mr. X, this example holds good. So if there is a income from an asset, that is clubbed. Income on income is not clubbed. That's it. These are the various provisions in relation to clubbing. Very important. All of them have to be thoroughly remembered, and all of them have to be revised also very well. So remember these provisions. This revision you have to do once again. Remember the general notes also, and this formula particularly where the income is arising from a business which is started by using the assets transferred from the SSE. So proportionate amount of such income should be clubbed in the hands of SSE. And minor child provisions are very important. Go through them and thoroughly remember all these exceptions also where the clubbing provisions are not applicable. Once we are thorough with these things of cross transfers and also related to HUF, these two are also important aspects. Then in the next class onwards, we will continue to do with the problems in relation to this chapter, and that will be only an application of the provisions that we know. Hence, we should be very thorough with the provisions before solving all those problems. So once again, read the chapter carefully, remember the provisions carefully. Problems can be done, completed in the next session. Not only that, also keep Girish Ahuja with you in the next session. We'll have a quick discussion on the questions in relation to which are mentioned in Girish Ahuja book. So provisions wise, this is over. Problems is to be done in the upcoming sessions. Till then, bye bye, take care, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.